Good day to you all. Today is the 27th of November. I am, of course, Rita Lazo. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. This is technically yesterday's entries, but I figured I should probably get them recorded now, and then I'll do today's later on. But yeah. Our first entry for we have like 3 entries in the book, I think it is. We then have a couple of extra entries across the group chat and the Celtic Saints website. Our first entry for today is Saint Fergus, and he is from the 8th century. According to the Aberdeen Breviary, which calls him Fergustian, St. Fergus had been a bishop in Ireland for some time before he went on a mission to Scotland with a group of clerics. Beginning in the environs of Strogiath, near the River Erne in present-day Perth and Kinross, St. Fergus and his companions established 3 churches. Next, St. Fergus evangelised Caithness, where he established churches in Wick and Halkirk. Moving on to Aberdeenshire, St. Fergus founded a church in present-day Fergus, and lastly, he founded a church in Glamis, Angus, Forfarshire. In 721, St. Fergus attended the Synod of Rome, where he signed the Acts of the Synod as Fergus the Pict, which is undoubtedly why the Irish martyrologies refer to him as St. Fergus Cruithnich, bracket the Pict. St. Fergus reposed c. 730 and was initially buried in the church at Glamis, where his relics were greatly venerated. In the early 16th century, the abbot of Scone had St. Fergus' head translated to Scone Abbey, where it was encased in an expensive shrine. The cost of the shrine seems to have been underwritten by King James IV of Scotland, whose treasure recorded in the accounts dated October 1503, an offering of 13 shillings, which is approximately £435 today, to Sanct Fergus Hyder in Scone. Later, the church in Aberdeen was able to obtain an arm of St. Fergus. St. Fergus is the patron saint of the village of Glamis in Angus and the town of Wick in Caithness. From time immemorial, St. Fergus' feast has been observed in Scotland on the 18th of November, though the Martyrology of Talort lists the 8th of September. The group chat entry is St. Fergus of Glamis. Born in Ireland, he was a bishop who preached among the Picts in Perthshire, Caithness, Buchan, and Forfarshire in Scotland, brackets c. 721 AD. I hope you've all took advantage of this time to read the entry here. I will see which one is next. Not yet. No. There we go. Our next saint is St. Galgo of Wales, and he is from the 6th century. St. Galgo, the founder of Clan Aclogo in Anglesey, Wales, was the brother of St. Aigrad, who we commemorate on the 6th of January, and De Exidio et Conquestu Britanni, author St. Gildas the Wise, brackets 29th of January. He is believed to have been buried on the site of the current St. Galgo's church near the village of Clan Aclogo, where there have been a church since the 6th century or 7th century, making it one of the oldest Christian sites in Anglesey. The group chat entry just simply says St. Algo, founder of Clan Aclogo in Anglesey in Wales, brackets 6th century. Right, our final entry in the book is St. Seachnall. I will move this a bit down, and then I will move everything down so that you can read it. So it starts off with a quote from him. A stream of wisdom. So St. Seachnall, also known as Seachnall or Secundinus, and he is from the 5th century. The entry in the book actually starts with something from the Filere Onaguso on the 27th of November. A stream of wisdom with splendour, Seachnall, diadem of our lords, has chanted a melody, noble prophet, a praise of Patrick of Armagh. Right. According to the Irish annals, Saints Secundinus, Auxilius, who is his brother, and Isaninus, and then for whatever reason it says in brackets, all three 6th of December, came to Ireland in 439 to assist St. Patrick, who we commemorated back on the 17th of March, in his evangelization of the Irish. The annals also tell us of St. Seachnall's that St. Seachnall already had a great deal of experience when he arrived in Ireland. Aside from the Irish annals, information on St. Seachnall's life is drawn from a variety of sources, several mythologies including the Philarer Oenguso, the tripartite life of St. Patrick, a list of the coabs, which is heirs, of St. Patrick, and several later documents of uncertain accuracy. The Annals of Ulster record 7th century monk and Irish historian Muirchu's account. Saint Muirchu is commemorated on the 8th of June, which mentions Saints Auxilius and Isaninus, stating there is a possibility the saints could have been from Auxerre. However, there is no mention of Saint Seachnall. The only extant life of Saint Seachnall dates from the early 17th century and derives from a compilation of documents in the library of the fanatic champion of Protestantism turned zealous Jesuit by the name of Henry Fitzsimon S.J. And then, in brackets, we've got a cross and then a C. 1643, during his exile from Ireland. According to these various sources, St. Seachnall was one of the sons of St. Patrick's sister, Darurca, and then in brackets it says 22nd of March. And he may have studied in Gaul prior to accompanying St. Patrick to Ireland. Later, a tradition of uncertain provenance seems to intimate that Secundinus and Auxilius were of Italian origin. This tradition first appears in the Irish preface to the Audite Omnis Amentes, hymn of Secundinus, as found in some manuscript versions of the Liber Hymnorum. This theory is supported by several contemporary scholars who have suggested that St. Seachnall was present in Ireland prior to St. Patrick's arrival. In his lecture, The Two Patricks, Celtic scholar Dr. Thomas F. O'Rahilly, M.R.I.A. brackets, the Sword Cross Thing, 1953, argued that it is possible that St. Seachnall and perhaps St. Auxilius as well came from northern Italy, was one of 3 bishops who arrived in Ireland in 439 to assist St. Palladius, who we commemorate on the 7th of July. British medievalists and Celtic scholar Dr. David Dromoville, with some hesitancy, allows that St. Seachnall was part of the Palladian mission. St. Seachnall is the patron saint of, and traditionally considered the founder of, Domnach Seachnall, present-day Domshailin in County Meath, as well as the first Christian bishop to repose on Irish soil. The Book of Leinster, C. 1160, lists him as St. Patrick's assistant bishop and successor to the See of Armagh. This is problematic, as most other sources list St. Benignus of Armagh, bracket 9th of November, as St. Patrick's coadjutor and successor as Ordinary of Armagh. The Book of Leinster lists St. Benignus of Armagh as the successor to a quite possibly apocryphal Sen Patrick or Old Patrick. Contemporary historians Doctors Nathalie Stalsman and T.M. Charles Edward have proposed that the connection with St. Patrick was a tradition created by historians of Armagh in the Middle Ages, and that in all possibility St. Seachnall arrived in Ireland separately from St. Patrick, possibly with St. Palladius. Furthermore, they grant that St. Seachnall may have been the primary bishop of the northern province, which in the 5th century was Greater Leinster, including most of Brega, as if anyone's assistant And if he was anyone's assistant, it was more likely he was St. Palladius's rather than St. Patrick's. I'm going to scroll a bit for you all. There we go, for those of you that want to read the last bit, since we are kind of getting towards the end. The authorship of the early Latin hymn known as Audite Omnes Amentes, or the Hymn of Secundius, is attributed to St. Seachnall. The hymn in praise of St. Patrick is written in Trochaic Septenarius and found in the late 7th century antiphonary of Bangor. Whether true or not, the attribution to St. Seachnall is not unusual in medieval sources, beginning with the Phileria Unguso, and especially in the preface of the Irish version of the hymn. The Irish preface also contains some biographical information on St. Seachnall, including the legend of his discord and reconciliation with St. Patrick, which was the impetus for writing the hymn. St. Seachnall is also credited with the authorship of the Eucharistic hymn Sancti Venate Christi Corpus Sumita, which is found in the Antiphonary of Bangor. St. Seachnall reposed after serving as a bishop for 14 years, at the age of 75, C.447. Even with the evidence of the medieval life, it does not appear that St. Seachnall was the subject of much, if any, veneration in that era. If indeed he was St. Patrick's assistant, this may explain in the lack of a significant cult, which most likely would have been hurt by being dependent of that of St. Patrick. Our next entry for today is the group chat entry is St. Seachnall, Seachnall, first bishop of Dunsauglin in Meath in Ireland and later served in Armagh, 457. A disciple of St. Patrick, in 433 he became the first bishop of Dunsauglin in Meath in Ireland and later served in Armagh. He wrote the earliest poem of the Irish Church, an alphabetical hymn in the honour of St. Patrick. And that can be found here. I might leave that in the description for you. Anyway, he has a Troparion, which is sung in the first tone. Today we hymn thee, O Hierarch Seachnall, for as thou in thy piety didst compose the praises of our Father Patrick, pray to God for us that we may with true piety honour our saints, and in praise this glorious company may be worthy of their prayers and the great mercy of Christ our God. I'll leave that in the description for you. Right. Who's our next entry for? I assume it's gotta be St. Conger of Somerset. I know, the entry's here for those that want to read it. I will read the group chat entry. St. Conger of Congressby, Bishop of Somerset, 520 AD, it is in brackets. The young Conger, seeking the ascetic life, sailed across the British Channel to what is now Somerset in England, where he founded an influential monastery in a place now called Congressby, Bury, named after him, becoming its first abbot. As is the case with several other Celtic saints, the spot for building the principal monastery was shown to St. Conger by a wild boar. He always wore a hair shirt, led an exemplary Christian life in permanent fasting and prayer, and his diet consisted only of a small quantity of barley bread that he ate once a day. According to his biographer, every day St. Conger used to enter the cold water, where he stayed until he recited the Lord's Prayer 3 times. Thereupon he would walk back to the church, where he would spend time in vigils and prayers to God and the creator of all things. A hermit's life was particularly dear to his heart. In the ascetic life, he imitated St. Paul, the first hermit, and St. Anthony the Great. His diet was so austere that he looked emaciated. The entries here, some of that is also came up on here. Right. I don't think St. Virgil actually comes up, so I actually can't cover him. Oh wait, no, yeah he does. Okay, never mind. There is actually a St. Virgil. Wait, does he come up as an early Irish? Was he an astronomer? We don't watch. I mean, it's possible that this is the entry for him. 784. Okay, Yeah, that's the same. Right, the entry in the book is actually in the group chat is very short. Saint Virgil (Virgilius or Virgil), abbot of Saint Peter's in Salzburg and bishop, the apostle of Carinthia (784 A.D.). He was an Irish priest and an early astronomer. Right, you've read that. I will go down to Daniel. Okay, so it's just these two parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go feel free to pause and read. Right, does St. Edward come up in the group chat? No, he does not. Cargo of Wales, we've already covered. Wait, that's already been covered. He's already been covered. Just covered. Okay, right, so we do actually have... okay, so we actually have an entry that's unique in the group chat. Wait. Wait, let's just go through this quickly. Forgive me. St. Conger of Congsby has been covered. St. Seachnall's been covered. St. Galgo has been covered. St. Fergus of Glamis has been covered, I think. St. Virgil has been covered, just. So, yeah. That's very interesting. So, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So our final entry for today is unique only to the Celtic Saints website, and it's for St. Edward of Caerna. He died in 871. Apparently he's the brother of St. Edmund, who we commemorated a few weeks, well, like last week. Yeah, may those saints intercede for us before the righteous judge. I have been Rita Lazar. God bless you all, and Amen.